Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. And what we would like to do here is we like to uncover the truth. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock and Ellis, up in New York, just outside New York City. City so nice they named it twice. And I am Purple Haze down here in the deep, dirty, dirty South. ATL shouty. All right, Brock. Breaking news as we come on the air this evening. The Department of Education folks are told, yeah, you got to scram by this evening, take all your stuff with you, be out by 6. And, it's funny that they found out after they departed the building that, in fact, here in the Atlanta offices, that folks were going to be let go. At least half of the workforce in the Atlanta office would be let go. First of all, why are they finding out via news media? And where is the transparency? Like, what's the whole point behind the cut? What is the truth behind the cuts at the Department of Education? Behind, you know, basically characterizing the Social Security fund as a Ponzi scheme. Like, what's Elon's bottom line here? I say it's to rape, loot, and pillage. What do you
Well, look,
say?
I guess they're going to change the locks while everyone's out, or change the access codes, right? And only a few
Right.
people will be allowed back in. Obviously, it's like kind of disgraceful, sloppy way any organization would do cuts, right? It's
Right.
Bush League at best, even if there was an agreement this should happen. But why would the Department of Education be a place where our government would want to pull back? Right?
Right.
Why would we want to downsize education? I mean, clearly the most educated society and country in the world is most likely to be the most powerful society in the world, right?
Right.
So there's no advantage in taking steps backwards as an educated country, right? We want the best and the brightest in the world coming here and staying here. And that's what gives such an economic soft power competitive edge to America. And now we're going to slash that because we don't want people as educated. Or if we talk in black and white, is this part of the white supremacy game? Is this part of
Absolutely.
Christian nationalism? Is this pulling money from public education, which everybody gets, shifting it towards vouchers, making education more something for the elite, allowing education to be more privatized so it can be more religious and it can really play, it can be more structured in terms of what's taught
Right.
and now it's really becomes a part of a white nationalism movement. Is that what's
Absolutely.
behind cuts at the Department of Education?
I,
Because it's
I,
not like we want to be or we just want to be a less educated country. There is that argument that oligarchs want the masses less educated as well.
sure. Sure.
So is it one of those two, a combination, or both? What do you think?
I think it's a combination, right? I think it's a combination of the white supremacy movement, dumbing down America and then lifting white America up for those who can afford it. I mean, think about it. Where do Trump's kids go to school? An elite private school with an $85,000 a year tuition for middle and high school, right? Now, if you got two, three kids, how you swinging that? Right? That's out of reach for most, hardworking white Americans.
Yeah,
And then
that's less than 1% of people that are
absolutely.
swinging that.
Absolutely. And so, and then we talk about, the white supremacy movement and, African Americans don't have those kinds of resources, right? The public schools are already getting shortchanged on resources, teachers spending from their own pockets just to get the basic necessities to be able to teach a class in inner city schools. So, look, we understand what it is. Like racism is nothing new here in America. What's new is the upfront kind of in your face approach that Trump and his cronies are taking. And education, I mean, look who is in charge of the Department of Education, right? The lady who coined the atomic elbow phrase, right? The WWE lady, right? Like the WWE lady whose daughter, like, went out in the ring in her underwear and whatnot and bikinis and whatnot. And obviously, um, drove many an athlete in the WWE to suicide, and
Oh
many of
yeah,
those guys were left with all kinds of personal problems and injuries
injuries. Yeah,
because they refused to take care of them. So, it's well documented that the WWE
it's
was
horrendous for
slave labor. Yeah,
employees. Yeah.
absolutely. Degrading the women, the whole nine. But they had a following, so, they didn't care. But getting back to the main issue, like, the Doji Bros, like these 5, 19, 20-year-olds, Big Balls is apparently the leader, right? These guys have criminal records. Why don't we know what they're doing? Why can't we see what they're doing? When's the forensic audit taking place for what they did in the Treasury Department, what they are doing at Social Security? And now, why are we laying off 4,000 people at the Department of Education? Not to mention all the cut. Now, the courts are saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. They even ordered Elon to show and produce the records of the activity that they've been undertaking.
Yep.
So
You know
when are
what?
we going to see the end?
I'm gonna believe that when I see it. So
Right,
now let's see if we actually get, a following of, judicial demands, right? This is
right,
where the rubber meets the road on, whether we still have a judicial branch, whether we still have a democracy as we knew it, right? Because now if the executives branch or oligarchs just ignore judicial rulings, then what? Who are we calling in?
right,
No one's coming,
right.
no one's coming, no one's enforcing it. There's no enforcement mechanism, which is why ultimately we'll have to end up on the streets. But yeah,
Yeah.
DOE is a classic example of, the white power game. Betsy DeVos was in the administration last time.
Oh,
She was all
remember
about the
that?
vouchers and the religion. And now this is
Hmm.
just a Project 25 follow through on what they didn't get done the first time, which is
First
why
time.
Trump 2.0 is a disaster. But this is institutional racism
Absolutely.
from the government working its
Of our
way
country.
into, what is
Yep.
basically we've always viewed as a civil right and a societal agreement we had that we were going to try to educate all our people. It was never even close to equal. Now we're just making it more unequal,
You're
whatever
right.
the proper term is. So yeah, this one's a
Right.
tough one, and but
But,
there's no one to stop
Brock,
it.
no, and that's the thing. Who do you call? So you can't call the oligarchs, right? Because the billionaire bros that went to Trump's inauguration indoors have lost $209 million collectively since Trump took office. The market tanked another 400 points today. Like, what's the purpose of kowtowing to this guy if he just cost you, $250 billion? What's that, a quarter of a trillion? I mean, like, what is the purpose? Like, what are you gaining?
I part of me, I really feel that the wealthy Americans didn't think this was going to happen. They literally thought that Trump was going to be good for the economy and good for them, as quote he was the first time with the tax
Right,
cuts, and that was enough, and the cut the
right,
business regulations, cut the taxes, and their life is going to be better yet again. But
right,
yeah, all their wealth on paper, all their what they own is all going down in value because the the world has figured out that Trump is a loser,
right.
right? The world has, right? I mean, they literally had a NATO meeting
Without,
without us today, right? NATO
right,
meeting without America, figuring out how to go forward without us. They figured out America has a loser in charge, they're a losing partner. The financial markets have figured it out. Money
right.
is coming out of the markets, right? Now it's like, oh
Sell
shit,
off is
these
crazy.
decisions are terrible and we're going to go into a recession. Like this is cars being driven off of a cliff. So little by little, the people of Canada have figured out America is a losing hand and Trump is a loser. And the only ones left, right? China, Russia, North Korea, Saudis, and all these guys are just figuring out how to manipulate Trump to their
To
benefit.
their
They don't
advantage.
give a shit
Right,
about what goes on in America.
right.
They're just trying to play the game and to their benefit. The only ones left. who haven't made the decision that Trump is a loser is the American people. We're the only ones left in the world that haven't figured this shit out. And if we have, we figured it out, but we haven't figured out what to do about it, or
Right.
we're unwilling to do what we know in our gut we're
Right.
going to have to do eventually. And we're maybe all just in delay mode. We're just procrastinating. But
Right.
as we do, we're losing things.
So I heard an interesting story today, and it's basically FAFO 2025, right? F around and find out. A friend of a friend had a wealthy family that they were good friends with from Scottsdale, Arizona. Their daughter was a rising star, right? And decided to take up the cause of social justice. Moved to DC, got a nice government position, and then all of a sudden, the parents were Trumpers, the daughter, all for fairness, equality, equity, inclusion, diversity. Her job was eliminated by the Doji Bros. I mean, it's the tragic irony because here is a young lady who's trying to do some good in the world, right? And and I don't know her parents, so I can't speak to their motivations, but they're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, obviously, right? And the one that the parents support are the ones that are taking down their own kid, right? Now, there is nothing more frustrating than somebody doing something to your kid.
And
Nothing
a
more
second,
maddening.
yeah, and a
Nothing more maddening.
secondary absurdity could be she might have been really good at the job and just gotten promoted and therefore gotten the category as probationary promotion, but they're just
Right.
searching with the AI, they're just searching and see probationary, and she's the one
Gotta
getting
go.
fired because they didn't realize that that actually meant some of the best people were in that category because it was tied to
Exactly.
actually moving up the ladder. But no, the
Exactly.
OG and our AI geniuses didn't go a layer deeper. They were just keyword
Oh, they're
search and
19, they're 20.
probationary. Yeah.
Right. They're
Well,
22 years old. They don't know what anything is. They don't know how shit works. All they know how to do is be keyboard warriors.
there's a new fuck around and find out story a day. Are there enough of them? Right. There's still parents whose kids died of measles saying, oh, well,
Right.
we think the vaccine had, toxins in it that was going to be damaging to our child. I'm like, okay. I mean, I
Right.
guess you can think that. And, unfortunately your child didn't have a say in the matter, and now he's dead of a disease that no one in the country died from. We'd get one a year over multiple
Right.
decades. So yeah, there's just bad this you know there's just bad decisions being made all over the place, and there's just these bubbling stories of more and more frustrated people. But I wonder, in your scenario, in your FAFO scenario, does that couple in Scottsdale sour on Trump, or is their daughter just an unfortunate, um, innocent bystander in these important cuts that need to be made?
Well, again, it gets back to connections. And we in the African American community have an old saying, you got to have the complexion for the connection. And so I don't think they need the sour, right? Because they pick up a phone, they call
Their
their
daughter, yeah.
best friend.
She's going to land on her feet. She's going to land on her feet.
Yeah, she's gonna land on her feet. Whereas my kid may have to pack up and come home until they can rebound and find another position somewhere as promising, right? A lot of my cohorts in the television news industry never experienced the kinds of long job outages that I was faced with, 6, 8 months at a time. And, again, that's you're forced to start all over. You're forced to borrow from your retirement to buy the next house, but you haven't had enough time to, gain any equity in that last home because you only been in it 4 or 5 years. So you don't really make any money. So you're losing money on your housing. You're losing money, when it comes to your retirement savings. You're losing money when it comes to the cost of moving. And then you're wearing yourself out on this treadmill because now your resume's tattered and everybody's well, why are you jumping from place to place? Right? Maybe it's you. Right? So I'm just saying, all this stuff. has a ripple effect, right? All these things that we're seeing, you have to look at them in black and white because that's how everything is looked at in the United States of America through a black and white lens. And it's just really sad. It's really frustrating. And at the same time, you don't want to hamper your kids with that kind of baggage that says, oh, look out for the white man. He gonna keep you down. No, that is not how you raise a productive child, by telling them to look over their shoulder and not trust the people that they're working with and working next to or working for. So you can never realize your full potential when you're always holding something back. So that's why I get so peeved, and that's why a young lady like that, who obviously is talented, right? She doesn't need any help to advance on her own, but she's also, you know, got the hookup, right? And so when you get the hookup, plus you're talented, now you really have things going for you. So, it's frustrating, and that's why black people are like, hey, you can take whatever you want from me. I always been broke. Somebody told me that
Yeah.
story today. They were like,
Well,
hey, man told me I always broke.
unemployment's going to spike, and we'll look at the numbers again, and it'll probably,
Yep,
increase more in the Black community and the Latino community, and less in the white community, right? We'll see those charts different because who are these people that just got fired from all these government jobs? Which of them are going to find jobs quickly, and which of them are going to be,
yep,
in prolonged unemployment, where they're going to have to knock on more doors, do more interviews, and just have more seats that they can fill, or
yep,
many of them will probably take lesser seats, right? And that's what you said. It's where the dominoes just start to fall, and
yep,
and it's we'll get an increased income inequality, opportunity inequality, education
man,
inequality. Like, all our inequalities are going to grow more and more. And this is where Bernie's on point, minus having the racial part of it.
right.
Um, and it's just interesting that he's still, in essence, one of the loudest voices on the left,
Mm-hmm.
and we just don't
And we
hear
need
that
him.
many. Yeah, and we definitely do. I'm glad he
Yeah,
stayed for another term.
yep,
Um, and we once again, we just don't have enough people yelling loud enough, um, to inspire,
right.
enough people, right? We haven't hit the FU mode yet, certainly.
And
And
that's
will Department of Education be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Probably not, because it won't
right.
impact people near term. It'll take a while to work its way through society.
Well, now don't be so sure because there are a lot of programs that are being funded, like programs for special education, programs for special needs kids.
Oh, they're going to get cut right away?
Yeah, oh
Mm.
yeah. And I read a blurb the other day that some programs were being cut around the country, and parents were up in arms because their kids had special situations that are, federally funded projects, and a lot of the science and research that goes on in the education field, right? At
Well, look.
MIT, at these famous institutions. These are federally funded projects.
Well, like you said yesterday, people get mad when they find out their parents aren't getting the Social Security and the Medicaid, and,
Right.
and now they got to cover, or, I mean, certainly we're going to get some big fuck around and find out stories from parents who now have
Oh, no
special needs
doubt.
kids. If those dollars actually get shut off quickly, which I wasn't aware of, then yeah, they're going to feel it right away, and they
Oh,
will be
yeah,
kicking and screaming.
no doubt.
Um, so, we'll look for those stories to maybe, be a
And
yet
they're
another
coming.
be another brush fire, right? Like another group that's now, angry. Ultimately, the left
Yep.
is going to get angrier than the right, right? The right has always been in constant anger mode, apparently, because their country was being, pulled away from them.
Invaded.
But
Right.
now, the anger on the left is gonna rise to a higher temperature as
Yep.
things are taken away from people who never or not used to things being taken away from them.
Hello.
Ever,
Hello.
ever.
And
Always
I'll
getting
leave you
more things.
and I'll leave you with this one last saying from the Afro-American community, right? When the white community catches a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Okay, so I've been hearing that since I'm old enough to remember it. So that goes way back. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us, Brock.
Yeah.
I feel a little
Well, we're gonna
better.
wrap today. Tomorrow we're gonna keep a close eye on what the Senate's gonna do with this continuing
Mm,
resolution that now has gotten thrown on their laps. And I think
it's a
they have
big
till
one.
Friday to decide, and we'll see what happens relative to the government staying open and whether some senators, kind of step forward and how, Chuck Schumer, if he actually shows some leadership and some gumption here.
Cojones.
So we'll keep an eye on that. We're gonna see how he plays his hand, and we'll see how absurd the Department of Education scenario looks in the morning after this
Yep.
6 o'clock, locking of the doors.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable, my friend. All right, buddy. Have a good
All
night.
right.
Knock 'em
All right.
down.
Good stuff. All right, Mark. Always a
Righty.
pleasure.
Talk at you.
Okay. Bye bye.